Hey, this is Christian Roldan,
and Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders Football Club.
and you're listening to
This is Nos Audietis. This episode of Nos Audietis is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Audietis since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
Save by Fry! The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners!
Here comes Ray Gibbs through the middle to crown it for Seattle! And now they truly can start the celebrations. It's the Sounders MLS Cup.
Nico Lodero leaves absolutely no doubt! The Sounders rule the region!
Seattle Sounders is going good!
They've scored! They've scored! Finally!
This feels fucking awesome.
This is a tiny dog.
Is that what you young people call twerking?
And Porter says cheated.
You wanna win? This is the Seattle Sounders, bro.
Welcome back to another episode of Nos Audietis, sponsored by Full Pull Wines and Watson's Counter. I am Jeremiah O'Shan. Joining me today to preview the upcoming Sounders FC Dallas match is Buzz Carrick of thirddegree.net. How's it going?
Oh, good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so before we get too deep into this, I wanted to, because we are a newly independent site, I always like to talk about my fellow independent MLS reporters. And so I wanted to just sort of talk about what you guys have going. You were one of the, maybe the longest tenured MLS reporters out there, certainly covering a specific team.
Yeah, I started Third Degree in October of 1997, following the end of the 1997 season. So I'm approaching the end of my 26th season covering FC Dallas. I've been going to training and talking to coaches and stuff since 98, give or take. I've pretty much seen it all, as you can imagine. We were independent for most of our history. We did spend a couple of years working with ESPN Dallas, which doesn't really exist very much anymore. And then we spent about 8 years or so with partnering with the Dallas Morning News. But we were independent before that, and we've been independent since then.
And you guys are basically on a Patreon model, is that right?
Patreon model. We have, I jokingly call it the PBS model, where we put all our content out available and then say, hey, if you like what we do, give us a buck. We have a website and a podcast. The podcast is in its 5th year. And then, we also put out news, of course, in social media and Twitter and things like that. But the primary structure is the podcast and the website.
Well, nice. It's a, it's not so dissimilar from what the model that we're doing at Sounder at Heart. And so I do think this is it's great to see something like this surviving as long as it has. But I guess you have a day job too, is that right?
Yeah, that's the thing, is that this has always been a hobby for the most part. I mean, I work in professional media, and television, to be specific. And so I have a career, and this my life livelihood is not dependent on this. In fact, we didn't try and make any money on it at all until about 5 or 6 years ago. And the people that work with me are in businesses like radio or internet development, or so we're all media professionals, and we don't bring a fan point of view. We bring a professional media point of view. So we have very high standards about who we allow to do stuff for us. And we've been treated as professional media people since the get-go, by both FC Dallas and Major League Soccer. So we try to follow all the ethical rules of professional journalism. We try not to make things emotional. We try to analyze things, and report on things in a professional manner. So it does make us a little bit different from other people. I will be honest about that. I don't think that we're the same as your average fan blog. We occupy a different space than that.
Well, along those lines, what's been your perspective on Dallas, as not necessarily on the field, but off the field? It does seem like, and I don't know if it almost seems like it's an unremarked upon thing, but it does feel like FC Dallas has sort of turned a corner in terms of its market relevancy. You look at the attendance numbers, and they're consistently drawing 17, 18, 19,000 a game, which I assume means they're selling out pretty regularly. What's the sort of like the way how, and that's not always how it's been, for obviously for a long time, Dallas really struggled in the marketplace. But what's it like now?
Well, they've absolutely been lacking in impact in the marketplace here and awareness, brand awareness here. They've even suffered, in long-term awareness to people like the Dallas Sidekicks who've been around for considerably longer in the indoor game, even though that's nowadays a much, much lower level of play. But I will give them some credit. It starts with, believe it or not, the Austin FC coming into Texas and showing that you could actually draw big crowds in Texas. And I don't know that the people at FC Dallas would admit this, but it is 100% true that they noticed that it was doable, And then the second thing that happened was, and this is mostly all post-pandemic, was that the Ricardo Pepi sale allowed them to reinvest money. The Hunts say, and we don't have a forensic accountant to really know, but they say that they don't take the money out of the club; they leave it in the club.
Mhm.
And I will tell you for a fact that I know that almost everybody across the organization got raises post Pepe sale. Every part of the budget was increased. They brought on new people in new positions, including like a VP of marketing, which they didn't have for a couple of years.
It seems like
coming
a
out of the
key
pandemic.
position to have, but
Yeah. Pretty key. Well, they had somebody, and then in the pandemic, they had to do staff reductions, and that was one of the things that had gotten the person that was in that job. To be fair, I think was probably in over their head a little bit. So they went out and got a guy who'd been with the Mavericks for a time, had been with professional big companies doing marketing. His name is Jerome, and his last name is leaking out of my brain right at the second. But when you combine that position with the clear increase in budget in terms of everything that they do, not just in advertising, but also for sure in advertising, there's been a dramatic impact on the field. And it's not just stands and selling tickets. The whole organization has taken a massive forward in every way, and full credit to them for finally doing that. And it's paid off in the stands for sure. They've had 50% sellouts this year, which if you know about anything in this club, that's remarkable. Now,
yeah,
the stadium only holds like 19 or 20 post Hall of Fame. But if you look at it in terms of sales, in terms of the capacity percentage, they're one of the top 10 in the leagues now in terms of percentage of capacity sold. And not just that, we all know in Major League Soccer, the numbers announced are not the numbers actually there.
right.
The butts and seats percentage has gone way up too. So like when they're saying that it's a sellout or it's almost a sellout, it really is. Now that, of course, that doesn't get them anywhere near in the category of these big, massive teams like you guys are used to in Seattle with your larger, much, much larger crowds.
Sure.
But from where this team has been, it's a remarkable, dramatic improvement. And for everybody in this market that is a soccer fan, it's really exciting to see them finally, I don't know, wake up, if you will, to the idea that it could be better and bigger than it is. And for the Hunts to change their ways a little bit in terms of what they're willing to spend.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know, maybe people forget this now, but when we first started covering the Sounders back in 08, 09, and even those up until probably 2000, I don't know, 15, 16 at least, it seemed like Dallas was struggling to even get to 5 digits, and to hear that they are selling out 50% of the games, I think is really, it is remarkable. And I don't know, it's funny because Dallas was for so long sort of like a joke in terms of the people that would talk about how no one goes to the games, and now that they aren't, it's like people just accept it as like, oh, that's just how it is. But it took a lot of work, and I think Dallas deserves a lot of credit for sort of turning this around and showing that it's not just expansion teams that they can see these attendance bumps but an MLS original can sort of turn this around, even if they don't do it right away.
Yeah, this is a massive, massive market. It's one of the top 5-6 markets in the United States in terms of population.
Yeah.
They do not draw as they should in the entire market yet. But people like to also point out that Frisco, where the stadium is fairly far from downtown Dallas. But the people also that if you're not from here, you don't understand that there's a massive population up around that stadium. So if you look at the 30-minute drive window, which is where most teams target their audience, there are more people around that stadium within that 30-mile, drive or 30-minute drive or whatever it is than there are in about half the markets in the league.
Right.
So they should have done much better than this before. We should not ever give them the excuse of there not being enough people around that stadium because of where it is. That's ridiculous. There's plenty of people to outdraw the bulk of this league if you do a good enough job and spend enough money. So that's the difference. They finally have started to do that. They finally started to make inroads. It's not where Austin is yet in terms of its awareness in that community, but it's a massive improvement light and day over where they were. They're now getting more coverage in the local media. You're now seeing more awareness around town in all phases, even like interaction with the other professional clubs in town on social medias or whatever else has jumped up. So again, in all phases, they're finally doing the things that are necessary to do. And we're seeing a reaction in numbers, and we're beginning to start to have conversations about what the next phase is. If they continue this current trajectory over the last 2 years, you're going to be looking at them selling out virtually every game. Now, most professional clubs will tell you that it's not bad to have that problem. Artificial scarcity, a hype factor of, man, it's tough to get tickets for that. But there is a point at which they're going to have to talk about what are they going to do to get a larger number of people. And with the World Cup coming, the Hunts have been talking about adding on to that stadium or renovating that stadium again with a hotel and a new stands on either side and trying to bump that number it can hold up to the next phase, whatever that would be. And if you've watched this team long enough, that's incredible. For this club, which was, averaging what they might have claimed 15, but really it was like 10, 12 people sitting in the stadium, to be like, we're actually filling the stadium all the time and having these conversations about what are they going to do over the next decade now that these numbers are approaching real sustainability. And this club, it looks like probably it's actually breaking even or making money. It's crazy from where we were.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do they expect? What kind of crowd are they expecting on Saturday for the Sounders?
Well, I mean, I honestly don't know. They haven't mentioned anything to me about what they're expecting, but everything this season so far has either been a sellout or within a grand or two of sellout.
Mm-hmm.
School has started again, and it is football season now, and this is football country. So obviously, high school, college, and pro football can massively impact what you're doing in the stands. So you'll probably see a drop off from where it has been earlier in the season. But I think if you're a fan from Seattle that has watched your team play here before, I think you'll see more than you're used to seeing. So I would imagine it'll be over 15K, but that's just a pure guess on my part. I don't think you'll see a sellout because it is now football season and school has started.
And so on the field, it seems like it's been an up and down season. A strong start, 6-3-3, but they've only won, it looks like 3 of 14 games over the last few months.
Yeah.
What would you say the feeling is around the actual on-field performances?
Just injuries. In the summer, they had a massive glut of injuries, the most at one time the club's ever seen in its entire history. And 80% of them all came in one position in the central midfield. So that was catastrophic in terms of performance. And then you combine that with Jesus Ferreira being gone for the Gold Cup.
Mm-hmm.
This is a team that has a very low goals against number. They're one of the best defensive teams around, but they're a very low offensive team in terms of goals scored. They're one of the bottom teams in the West in terms of goals scored, but 80-90% of those goals are Jesus Ferreira. So when he's gone and all those injuries are happening, this team was trash. There's no question that it was trash, but now everybody is healthy and Jesus is back. So as long as he's not quitting on the team, which I can't imagine he would be because he's trying to go to Europe, you're looking at, one would hope, and what the team expects is the performance that you saw in the first third or even first half of the season. So everyone here is relatively optimistic that you'll see a turnaround in the fortunes that'll look like the beginning of the year, and they're in a position to control their own destiny in a sense that they're currently in the playoffs. And if they take care of their business, they'll be fine. They're actually facing a bunch of teams that they compete against for that spot. So it's all on them and all in their hands to do it. And they have the most important pieces back. So I think they feel probably good about it.
So I saw that there was some chatter about Jesus Ferreira potentially making a move to Europe as early as this year. It sounds like that sort of quieted down, and his absence the other day was not actually about a potential move as much as he was dealing with some sort of injury. Oh, he had COVID.
Yeah, for like the fourth or fifth time.
Oh no,
it is ridiculous. Yeah, so Jesus has a contract that is relatively high, certainly for a homegrown. He's in the neck. I don't remember, it's not in front of me, but it's something like 1.5 going towards $2 million. The club, because of his value and to them, they're probably looking for a deal that is at least 10, maybe going up towards 15. This club here particularly is interested in sell-on percentages. So that number will float depending on how much sell on somebody wants to do. But here's the thing: there are clubs calling that are very interested, but they never received a concrete offer for Jesus. No one came in with an actual number. So part of that, of course, is that because of the expectation for what the club would want and the amount of money he makes, that actually really limits the places that he can go to, the clubs that can afford him. There are not as many clubs in the world that can afford that kind of salary or that kind of buy price as you might think. You're looking top 5 league in the world, and probably other than England, top half or top third of those leagues even can afford him, and that's about it. So the kid has ambition. He also has a lot of ambition to win something here and do more than his dad did. So that he's not looking to go like right this minute, but he absolutely wants to go sometime in the next year or two, I'm sure. And if the right offer came in now, he would jump on it. So would the club if the right offer comes in. If they had sold him this summer, though, they would have been hosed, and they know it, because there's nobody else here that can score goals at anywhere close to the kind of rate he's scoring at. They would be in trouble if they'd have sold him this summer.
So I just saw the injury report came out, and it lists Alan Velasco is out. Is that he had just been called up to Argentina? Does that mean he picked the injury up while he was with Argentina?
It's just a little tightness. I actually would not call him out. I would call him day to day.
The injury report, for what it's worth, the injury report did list him as out, but I don't know. That's interesting.
I mean, I saw him Wednesday. I would not call him out. I would.
So you think there's a chance he actually plays?
Yeah. Listen, these reports are, they're kind of not necessarily like written in stone. There's been many times where a guy out has played or a guy not out hasn't played.
Right. Yeah.
So I would call the guy day to day. It's not like he was walking around in a cast. He was doing some work on the side. So I would not assume that he's not playing. I would not predict he's playing either, but you're going to have to flip a coin and see what happens on the day of. The other one to note on that list is Giovanni Jesus. They're starting right back. Blew his ACL on Wednesday in training. So he's done for the year. So that one is legit out. And I can't remember who. Bernie Camungo, who's done really well. 21-year-old, 22-year-old kid they brought up through North Texas. That's the kid they found in an open tryout. He's a Tanzanian refugee. It's a great story.
Is the kid that he scored against the Sounders? That the guy?
I think he scored 5 or 6 goals this year. He has a high rate of game winners, oddly enough. He's a young kid. He has a separated or strained his ligament in his shoulder, like a collarbone kind of thing. So that's probably that he won't be available. That's a 5 or 6 weeks, but not the end of the season like Giovanni is. So, all these outs are different.
Right.
Same, So I wouldn't write off Alan Velasco completely.
So speaking of Velasco, this seems like, I know he came into the league with a fair amount of hype. He was a player who I think he's still probably a record fee that FC Dallas has paid for somebody. But it also feels like he's playing a slightly different role than when he originally came in. How has his game evolved?
Yeah, he was the records buy for this club. Well, he first came in as a winger here. Now he's always been capable of playing in the center in terms of his ability. But the coach here started him on the wing because he didn't feel Alan was ready, emotionally, mentally for the weight of being inside, and in particular, being surrounded constantly. As you know, when you play on the wing, the sideline is your friend in a sense. Everything's in front of you, right? You only have to deal with half of your sort of awareness. When you're in the middle, you have to have 360-degree awareness and play in a 360-degree way. So he wasn't quite up for that. This year, they've been wanting to try and implement that more, and they used the Leagues Cup to do that. Starting at the beginning of the Leagues Cup, they just moved him inside and made him, well, no one really plays with a 10 anymore. We call it a free 8, like a De Bruyne style advanced 8. Alan has done a really good job since he got here on his defensive side. He's a very tenacious, tracker in terms of getting back and nipping balls off of people. But what he has done since he moved inside is he's become the sort of dynamic 8 that crashes the box and makes penetrating passes in. And it's been the player that we sort of were expecting all along. And then that play that he's done, over the 6 or 7 games that include Leagues Cup, he kept Dallas going without Jesus. And that play was recognized. And I think it's what got him called up to the national team. So he trained with the senior team, and then he played and scrimmaged with the U23s. And the U23s used him inside in that same role. So there's obviously recognition that his game has transitioned, and that's the new paradigm for him is going to be inside.
So another player who on the other side of the field FC Dallas, like you mentioned, has been pretty good defensively, and at least it seems like sort of the breakout player there has been Nkosi Tafari, who actually is a Seattle U product, or at least he played a senior year at Seattle U. What's his season been like? I know it's not exactly a rise from nowhere, but what's he do well, and what should people know about him?
Yeah, he's been coming on the last couple of years, and this year he's basically become the man. It's like he's now the defensive leader of this team. The whole thing revolves around him. When it's him and somebody else, when you're filling out the lineup card, unless of course the load is really heavy with like it is coming up for Dallas. He's become very mature, very much a leader, very demonstrative. You'll see him, doing things on the field to sort of galvanize the team and the defense. He's very rangy, very athletic, powerful kind of player. His passing is not elite yet, but it's not bad. One-on-one, he can keep up with anybody. He can close down a lot of space. He's a very aggressive defender. He's not a guy that's going to sit deep and react like Tim Ream. He's going to come out on you and hit you. Very physical. When he's played with paired with Martinez, Martinez is the one who sort of sits and reads more, is more static. Whereas if he's with Ibeagha, both of those guys are pretty aggressive and will read and chase and try and proactively attack the game. So we reached a point here where we talk about, and the coach even talks about Nkosi Tafari being one of the elite defenders in this league, and coach says his next step is to push him up to where he's an all-star caliber player, and he's not there yet, but he definitely is Dallas's best defender at this point by a pretty good margin.
Do you happen to know the story of how he ended up at Seattle U? He's obviously he's an East Coast kid. He went to UConn and then spent his senior year at Seattle U. He's someone that, like, when he got drafted, it's like, oh, not a player who was on my radar, but he's obviously worked out very well.
I don't know what the personal connection was that got him there. I do know that he left UConn because he wasn't getting, the opportunity he felt he deserved and the chance to play that he felt like he deserved. And when he went, to the West Coast, he was obviously walked in the door better than they're used to having, and became a stalwart in their defense. And part of why Dallas drafted him, other than the obvious athletic profile, was his ability to hit pretty long, accurate passes there. He was a really good passer out of the back for them. Now he's carried that forward, but MLS is obviously much more difficult. So, he's not an elite, U.S. national team caliber, Chris Richards style elite passer, but he's still pretty good. And he does attempt these long passes out of the back. I'm sure you'll see some of them. Dallas as a team likes to stifle the game. Part of their defensive plan is that they will sit in the mid to low block. They don't necessarily want the ball. When they get the ball, being dynamic in transition is their game. It's not a counterattack. It's just rapid transition ball. When they get it, they want to catch you before you've recovered and get ready. And they can score really quickly on you if you're not always paying attention, always ready for transition. That's their best game. Like, if they have to dribble it around and pass it around and build up, they're not going to be good. They're going to want only like 40% possession. So part of that is when they do recover, even if it's deep, they're instantly looking to break out with mid to long passing and get at you before you're ready. So that's a key part of his game, is that you're not looking for him to dribble and go by a guy or make some little progression moves and these little ticky-tacky passes. They're going to go. And so that's where he's at his best once they win it from you.
And anyone else on Dallas that is worth really paying attention to? Obviously, Dallas has produced quite a few U.S. national team players. They've been among the most aggressive teams in terms of pushing players to Europe.
Well, Paul Arriola is healthy again. Martin Paz in goal is a big part of why their defense is pretty good. They've got a brand new player that they got from Spain, whose name is Asier Iaramendi. He played, like 140 games in La Liga, including a couple years with Real Madrid. So he's legitimately like a phenomenally cultured player. Like, if you see him play, and he may or may not, because he's only been here a little period of time, but if you see him play, you'll see how seriously quality his touch and passing is, and his game reading is well above the MLS standard. Now he's in his low 30s. He can't quite move like he used to be able to, but you're talking about a guy who was capable of starting for Real Madrid, and these high-powered Spanish clubs. So the quality is there. I'm hoping that he's rapidly going to become a starter here because he is so talented. So if he gets in, that's a guy to look for. And of course, the other options in midfield are Sebastian Lletget and Paxton Pomykal, both of whom have been in or around the national team over the last 3 or 4 years a bit, whether it be more youth stuff for Paxton or senior team for Lletget. Now, he's probably not going to be involved anymore, but that doesn't mean he wasn't a pretty good player at one point.
Absolutely. Well, Buzz, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people follow you? Where can they keep track of what's going on with Third Degree?
Well, thirddegree.net is the website. The podcast is called Third Degree, the podcast. And on any social media, you can find us under the name Third Degree. You know, if you search for Third Degree in FC Dallas, I'm sure you'll find us in many locations. We've been around long enough that our brand is pretty seen across soccer platforms. So it shouldn't be hard to find us. Thirddegree.net is the main website.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us. It's looking forward to a good game on Saturday. And I'm Jeremiah Shan signing off for Nos Adietis. We will catch you next time.
We love you. Let's win another one.